I'm just going to level with you guys. I don't really know what to say right now. I mean, this has been a season just plagued by injuries, but this week has been maybe the worst week of all as the Browns have lost another starter after another starter after another starter to a season ending injury. So we're going to recap the injury news. We're going to talk about the next man up at all these spots here. But Grant Delpit, one of my favorite players on this team, was placed on injured reserve. Now, Kevin Stefanski did say there was a chance he could return in the postseason in January, but he got surgery on his groin, and as a result, the Browns promoted Duron Harmon to the active roster, and they also signed offensive tackle Joey Fisher to the practice squad to try and help with the losses of Dawand Jones and Jedrick Wills. Joey Fisher is a UDFA this year out of Shepherd College. It's the same college where Tyson Bagent, the Bears quarterback, went to D2 in West Virginia. But like I said, if you thought that injury news was the only bad news you were getting today, no. Then we had Jake Trotter break some news. Delpit isn't the only big loss for the Browns defense. Per source, Ogbo Okoronkwo has a pectoral injury that could end his season. So the second Browns defensive lineman to go down with a torn pec. Now, they have not definitively said Okoronkwo is done for the year. Kevin Stefanski said they are hopeful he could possibly return, but man, they were hopeful that Grant Delpit's injury wasn't going to be long-term, and unfortunately, we saw how that went. So I would not hold your breath on Okoronkwo coming back, and it has just been an absolute disaster of an injury season this year for the Browns. I mean, look at the Browns IR team. This is a team that might beat the Carolina Panthers. And not just the injured players. Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb. Jakeem Grant, Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills, Dawand Jones, Dawson Deaton, Ty Nsekhe, Maurice Hurst, and Okoronkwo, I put a question mark next to, but it sure feels like he'll be joining them soon. And then to round it out on defense, Jacob Phillips, Grant Delpit, and Rodney McLeod. I think that Rodney McLeod injury, while sure it's not the biggest injury of the 13 players on IR, it does sort of say a lot of, hey, teams can overcome losing guys. I know as fans we feel like when a starter goes down, the backup is an awful player because he's not the starter. No, they're all NFL players. They're all professionals. They're all good at football. But when you lose your backups, who's left? Like, Dawand Jones was the backup for Jack Conklin, right? And he filled in very well for him. But you lost him now. And you're looking around the room, and you're losing backups, starters and backups. You're running out of bodies at this point. You're bringing D2 UDFAs in off the street who might end up starting at tackle like Joey Fisher, right? The Browns IR team, by the way, in case you're keeping score at home, their cap hit, just the IR team alone, is $57.5 million. Andrew Berry spent $57.5 million on the cap this year that went right down the toilet. That's tough to overcome. Yesterday, it was a fifth of their cap space was sitting in the trainer's room. It's up to a quarter now. I mean, think about that for a moment. Uncle Sam coming in, 25% of the money you spent on the offseason in the cap space, gone. At some point, I do fear that it's just going to become too much to overcome. Like, I thought losing Watson might be too much to overcome, but the Browns persevered. But if they're going to run out of guys, who's going to play tackle? Who's going to play these positions that can actually compete at an NFL level? So what's your one-word reaction to all these injuries? We'll talk more about it. I'll give you some free agent targets the Browns could go after in a moment, but give me your one-word reaction down below in the comment section. For me, I won't beat around the bush. It's fuck. I mean, the moment I saw the Grant Delpit news, audibly, I go, motherfucker. And I don't want to make this an absolute, potty mouth session, but we're out of guys. Really. I mean, the Browns safeties right now, just take that room, for example. Juan Thornhill is still battling a calf injury. I'm not too optimistic he'll be available on Sunday against the Bears, who, by the way, maybe a few weeks ago looked like an easy win. No, Chicago has won 3 out of their last 4. And if it's not Juan Thornhill, it's 2 UDFAs in DeAnthony Bell and probably Ronnie Hickman starting. Maybe Duron Harmon could get some looks, but my guess is they'll roll with Bell and Hickman if Thornhill cannot go. And losing Delpit is just going to be a very difficult man to replace. Like this season, 80 tackles, 1 interception, 3 pass breakups. When I look at this defense and I think pillars, I think cornerstones, I think Myles Garrett, I think Denzel Ward, and I toss Grant Delpit into that conversation. There are guys that you can somewhat cover up losing. I'm not quite sure how well the Browns can cover up losing Grant Delpit on the back end. Now, Duron Harmon was promoted to the active roster. Here's his Wikipedia pretty much. Third round pick by New England in 2013 out of Rutgers. Now, he did play earlier this year, ironically enough, for the Chicago Bears. 3 games, 1 start back in like October and late September. He has been on the Browns practice squad since November 22nd. So maybe he can help the Browns game plan for a team he spent 3 weeks with earlier this year. But he's got plenty of NFL experience. I mean, he's been in the league since 2013. He's won 3 Super Bowls. So he knows what it's like to compete at the highest level. So I'm pretty confident that Duron Harmon could step in and not be some disaster. But still, he's not going to be as good as Grant Delpit, who we can here. Now, the Browns' defensive line, we're not going to see Maurice Hurst for the rest of the year, and that sucks. I'm going to miss those belly rubs. Siaka Ika, the rookie out of Baylor, is probably going to get his first real snap of the NFL. I mean, he has been an inactive, healthy scratch every single week this season, but I think we're going to see Tomlinson, Jordan Elliott, Shelby Harris, and the rookie that a lot of people have been dying to see, Siaka Ika, suit up on Sunday. And Okoronkwo, I'm not optimistic that we'll see him the rest of the season as he's dealing with a pec injury. So it'll be Myles Garrett, Darius Smith, Alex Wright, and speaking of healthy scratches at the rookie position, Isaiah McGuire, the 4th-round pick out of Mizzou. We might see a little bit of him on Sunday or in the next couple of weeks. Okoronkwo is having a really special year. I mean, it might not look like a guy that's been, jumping off the stat sheet, 4.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. But I still know that Okoronkwo is a very quiet, important piece on this defense because what he does is he gets Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith a couple of breathers, and the offensive line might think they're catching a break because those guys aren't on the field for 1st and 10. But there's Okoronkwo, a player who would start on pretty much every other team in the NFL, and he's coming in for a little bit of extra juice on the Browns' defense. So Cleveland's going to miss him on early downs and when they put out 3 pass rushers on 3rd and long. Listen, I don't want to give up hope because we have seen this team be resilient and fight through a lot of injuries. And Kevin Stefanski, I mean, I think if this team goes to the playoffs, he deserves to be the NFL Coach of the Year, his 2nd time winning the award, based on him getting to 9-10 wins with 4 different, knock on wood, just 4 different starting quarterbacks this year and all the injuries Cleveland has endured. But I do believe there might be a breaking point. And I'm petrified that this breaking point just happened with Delpit, Hurst, and Okoronkwo, Dawand Jones, Jedrick Wills, all going down in the span of 48 hours. That might be too much. Now, coming up next on the show is actually what we were planning to talk about today, and that is some free agent targets in lieu of what I thought would just be like 1 or 2 injuries. But no, we got slapped in the face this morning with more injuries. But really quickly, I do want to shout out our awesome sponsor for today, which is Waterboy. Now, if you're not familiar with Waterboy, let me catch you up to speed because Waterboy is here to help you prepare for those nasty holiday hangovers. There's nothing worse than feeling like the Grinch while everyone else in the family is rocking around the Christmas tree. Waterboy is a hydration powder scientifically formulated to cut your hangover time in half. There are other hydration packs on the market, but nothing comes anywhere close to fighting those Sunday scaries like Waterboy. With 0 sugar and over 3 times the electrolytes of Liquid IV, your hangover will stand no chance. Unlike their competitors, Waterboy has added specific ingredients beyond just hydration to help with nausea, anxiety, and fatigue. We all know that hydration alone isn't enough to help battle a hangover after a holiday bender. Hundreds of thousands of people already trust Waterboy as their hangover cure. It's time to stop dealing with that anxiety alone. So for a limited time, my listeners get an exclusive 15% off discount with our link at waterboy.com/chatsports. That's 15% off at waterboy.com/chatsports. It's time to ho-ho hydrate this holiday season. All right, let's move on to some other injury news here. So a little bit of good news. I don't think we're going to be missing Ethan Posick for much time. Kevin Stefanski did sound rather optimistic that Posick could return, which would be great to maybe get Nick Harris back at fullback. And who knows, maybe they move Nick Harris to guard and kick Bitonio to tackle because Garyon Christian and James Hudson, they are barely staying afloat right now. Now, if we look at some free agent offensive linemen, the Browns did sign a practice squad tackle Joey Fisher earlier, but I'd be more inclined to look to guys with some serious experience like Taylor Lewan, LEL Collins, Eric Fisher to try and improve this offensive line because let's be honest, who here is confident that the rest of the offensive line is going to stay healthy the rest of the year? You shouldn't be. I don't know if this team is just snake bitten, if it's cursed, or if there is something fundamentally wrong with the Cleveland Browns training operation, medical staff, and all that to make sure players stay healthy. Now, one guy I like out of this bunch here is LEL Collins. He was released by the Bengals back in September after signing a 3-year contract the previous March. Now, at the end of 2022, he suffered a torn ACL and MCL. He missed all of the preseason and training camp on the PUP list, and ultimately the Bengals decided to just move on from him. But he is healthy. He is healthy now, or at least that's what his camp says, and he's got a lot of experience at the tackle position. 72 career starts at right tackle. James Hudson has been the worst tackle between him and Garyon Christian, so you could sign LEL Collins and put him at right tackle and just have an extra body at least on the offensive line. I think the Browns should go out and sign LEL Collins. Like, we are at the end of the season here. The finish line is pretty much in sight. 4 games to go. You don't need LEL Collins to come in and play 17 games and stay in football shape that long. We're asking for 1 month of his service. I think that is much more manageable to ask for a veteran offensive lineman coming off an injury. And before we get on to some other free agent targets to look at, I was peeking, and I'm going to lower my voice here because I'm in Studio F, which shares a wall with our boss, James Yoder, who hosts the Michigan Football Report. And if I got any Buckeyes fans watching right now, we are less than 100 subs away from passing the Michigan Football Report in subscribers. So if you hate the team up north, hit that sub button down below. Now let's talk a little bit about LEL Collins and his PFF grade. So in 2022, the last time he played a full season, he had an overall grade of 57.9. His run blocking was much better than his pass blocking. Gave up 5 sacks, gave up 8 penalties, or penalized 8 times. There's not a lot of really encouraging stuff right there to make the Bengals believe he was going to improve after an injury. So I can see why Cincinnati moved on. But if you go back to his 2 prior seasons before 2022, back when he was a member of the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, 82 overall grade in 2021, missed 2020, but in 2019, 86.4. So I still believe there is that really good player in LEL Collins. And again, we're not asking him to play at a high level from September to January. We're asking for a little boost this holiday season. And the Browns need a boost on the offensive line because Christian and James Hudson, while they filled in for Jed Wills or kind of a combination between him and Dawand Jones for a little bit, I figured, you know what, the Browns can get by with this, knowing Jed Wills is going to come back after 4, maybe 5 weeks, and Dawand Jones at the time didn't look like he'd be missing serious time. But now that you know there are no reinforcements coming, the Browns really want to stick by these guys for the rest of the season. That I'm not so sure about. So let me know, should the Browns sign LEL Collins? Chime in for me down below in the comment section. Give me a Y for yes or N for no. Now, at the other side of the line of scrimmage, you have the defensive line. Maurice Hurst is gone for the rest of the season. He was having a phenomenal year, like just 1.5 sacks and 4 tackles for loss might not jump out to you, but he was doing that as the 3rd or 4th defensive lineman in the rotation, right? He wasn't getting a whole lot of snaps, but he was making every single punch count. So when we look at this Browns defensive line, you've got a next man up mentality of the rookie Siaka Ika could be in line for some more snaps, but let's say the Browns go, we have seen Ika practice all season long. He does not look like he is ready to compete at an NFL level. There is a reason why he has been inactive every single week this season. Maybe we pick up the phone and call a couple veterans like Ndamukong Suh, a Browns free agent legend, or Akiem Hicks. So here are the stats for Suh and Hicks last year. Suh only played 8 games coming in midway through for the Philadelphia Eagles. Akiem Hicks played 11 games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We know these 2 players have had a lot of success earlier in their career. Of course, as they end towards the end of their career, it hasn't been so fruitful. But once again, I maintain the same stance. Asking a 30-plus-year-old veteran to come in and play from August to January is asking a lot for some of these guys. Asking for them to come off the couch and play December, if they're still in football shape, that is a much more reasonable expectation. It's not too late to reload. I know it might feel that way. It's December. There's 4 games left. What are you talking about, Petey? There's no one's coming into Berea to save the day. And yeah, I don't know if these guys can save the day, but they may very well be big improvements. And I think you can get a little bit of football juice out of them for the last month of the year. So that's going to do it for us on today's show. I really hope I'm not back here tomorrow, the next day, or the day after that with more injury news. So subscribe for good news. Subscribe for good news, right? Get the Good News Network going here at the Browns Report.